Tell the man of your life, show thyself a man. Say it with me, everybody. Say, show thyself a man. Now, what we're going to look at here is that everybody who look like a man is not a man. And so there's sometimes men try to portray like they're a man, but they're really not a man. And so we got to get to the place that you understand what a man really is. Watch this now. David didn't say, Solomon, show thyself to be this. He said, show thyself to be a man. And then he instructed him in carrying out the statutes of God. Because everybody who say they're a man and not carrying out the statutes of God, that's not a man. He is an earthly being that looks like a man, but that's not a man. A man is this, and we're going to look at this, and number one on your paper is raising the standard. Here's my question. Who set the standard for being a man? Who set the standards in your life, man, for you being a man? Now, I understand the standards of this, that you're responsible for taking care of your family. You're supposed to be the provider of the house. You're supposed to be the protector of the house. But the question comes back to, how do I provide for the house outside of their physical needs if I'm not providing for their spiritual needs? See, a man is more than a man who just take care of the things of the house. He understands what it means to be a man. So who raised the standards? And let me say this to everybody in here. Being a man myself, because I remember when I was teaching a piece in Albany, Georgia, and the man looked at me, he said, "But you're a man too?" I said, "That's right, and that's why I know this." Because a lot of times, our daddy take us by the way of the ego and not the way of the ego. And the ego edges God out, but the ego is centered in God. And sometimes what we have done to the boy trying to raise him up to be a man is that we try to teach him how to be a man by not allowing him to cry. Be a man. Stop all your crying. Stop acting like a little girl. What does that tell me I'm less of a man because I share some tears? So the key thing is who raised the standard? Who set the standards in your life for being a man? Does being a man mean I got 5 girlfriends and a wife? That's a fool in his follies, but the reality. But does that make you a man because you can get as many women as you want to? Ain't nobody talking with me now, amen? Does that make you a man because you're stronger than a woman and you can rule? Does that make you a man? So you got to ask the question, what standard did you come under to be a man? Who set the standards in your life to being a man? Who told you that you were a man? Did you ever hear from God that you're the man? So letter A of your paper is this. The worth of the man and his worth. If this is worth anything to you, how much would it cost you? Because to be a man is going to cost you something. To be a man is going to cost you something. I hear a few men in here, but to be a man, it's going to cost you something. But you got to see what it's going to cost me to be the man. What it's going to cost me to be the father that God called me to be. Now, if you that cheap as a man, are y'all listening to me, amen? If you are a cheap man in your walk with God, you're a cheap man to your wife. You're a cheap man to your children. If it's not worth anything to you, is it worth anything? Y'all quiet up in here, amen. It's okay, it's okay. I know y'all thinking now. I know y'all hearing God. I know y'all listening now because you got to ask you something. To be a man, it's going to cost you something. And I'll tell you something. A woman who got enough sense to know that you're going to be with her, she'll tell you like this. What Beyonce's song was? Put a ring on my feet. Come on now, amen. She said, if you're going to be, y'all remember that old song, if you're going to be with, see, it's going to cost, see, somebody in this church got to get to the place that you raise the standard for these boys and dating these boys and say, girl, you just can't get with me. So the key thing is that somebody here got to set the standard for being a man. Wait a minute, you can't even take care of your own household. You can't take care of your own bills. How can you be the man? Is it not worth anything to you? See, it got to cost you something to be the man. I ain't talking about just living up in the house. I'm not talking about just coming up in the church. I'm not talking about being on the job. I'm talking about being the man. Is it worth anything to you? Are y'all listening? Amen. Who set the standards in your life for being the man? Now, any man can beat up his wife. Any man can beat up his children because he's strong. But what it takes to be a man is saying, hey, wait a minute. Is it worth it? Is it, in my piece on this that y'all got to hear when I talk about the man as the parent, and y'all got to hear this, I'm giving y'all a preview. Like we at the movie theater, you get a preview of the movie. See, the key thing is the man, you can't shrink your children. You can't be the one, honey, I shrunk my children. And some of you, in your abusiveness, is shrinking your children. Sometimes your child is not measuring up to what you want them to measure up to, but that doesn't make you a man to always put them down. What make you a man is telling the child, I like your seed, but I'm going to help you do better than what you are because you are worth something to me. Who set the standards for being a man? Y'all hear that, amen? Who set the standard? See, it's going to cost you something to be the man. I get some men in here can say amen. It's going to cost you something to be the man. It's going to cost you something. Now, ladies, don't reduce your price because he act like he's on sale. So you got to get to the place that you say, listen, I'm expensive to be with. Oh, y'all ain't listening to me, amen. Some of y'all women have gotten yourself too cheap and he lowered his standard. But boy, I remember growing up, some women, listen, some women wouldn't even let you come looking like any old way to come up. You ain't coming to my mama's house looking like that. I don't know where you going, but you ain't coming up in here. Some of you lower your standard. Boys can be sagging, coming up in your mama's house now. Hello, somebody. But who set the standard? Who set the standard? Who set the standard? The second thing is this. Please hear this. Please get this in your spirit. It's the man and his opposition. A man, when he becomes a man, must understand that you are going to have opposition. But don't wimp out and run from it. Face it. See, if you're going to be the man, you got to understand stuff coming, you know, like stuff happening in your house, and you go like, you know, like instead of standing your ground and say, hey, we're going to deal with this. We are going to deal with this. Because how many of you know as a man you got opposition? Now y'all hear me. As a man you have opposition. See, we have a world that opposes us. You see today that the world promotes single families more than they promote. I was talking to a pastor the other day, and we're looking at this, and listen to this. Please hear me. 60% of couples in the city of Mobile end up divorced. 60% end up in a divorce. And if you're divorced one time, it's subject you're divorced a second time. Are y'all feeling me? So how do we raise the standard? They say we're not going to marry people unless they go through counseling. I was watching this show with Carla. Lord have mercy. And it raised in my spirit about this woman buying this dress. For how much was it? $26,000? A wedding dress for $26,000. And I looked at her. I said, but I bet you won't invest $26,000 in your counseling. You're not going to put that, you'll put that money in a dress, but you won't put it in making sure that we have a marriage and not just a ceremony. Oh, y'all quiet on me, amen. And that's why a lot of people spend all that money trying to, just for a one-day show. She talking about she went beyond her budget. Budget? See, for a dress? And I'm sitting there going like, girl, how much energy and time are you putting in the relationship between you and him? And like we said in church, it's easier to get a what? A marriage license than it is to get a driver's license.